I know the girls really appreciate you being here this evening. I'd like to welcome you to Peter's cocktail party. I would like to welcome our old girls. It's wonderful to see so many of you here this evening. Great pleasure to see so many of our family, the extended community, and later this evening, Paul Salter will welcome Peter's special guests who are arriving from interstate, who are here to join this evening as well. This very special ceremony, the Bracelet ceremony, is to recognise the girls and their families who have committed their entire schooling career to St Hilda's. Now, I believe that this ceremony goes back to the 70s. So I do thank you, and I thank the Women's Auxiliary for the time that they put into preparing this for the girls. So we might just have some quiet in the back as we welcome the girls to the stage. I'd also like to welcome our WA Treasurer, Miss Victoria Lakers, presenting the badges tonight. Please welcome Victoria.
Hello, welcome everyone. On behalf of the Women's Auxiliary, I'd like to congratulate all the girls of Year 12 for successfully completing their schooling life here at St Hilda's, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavours. And also a very big thank you to the parents for all the years of hard work and support that they've given the school. So can we all thank the parents and the girls of Year 12? It is our pleasure now to introduce the girls and hand to them the wonderful and beautiful bracelet from the Women's Auxiliary. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a couple of girls who hadn't arrived when we began this evening's proceedings, but if they have arrived and they hear their name, they're very welcome to come forward. But tonight we're going to begin by acknowledging Cameron Arnold. Please come forward, Cameron. And Victoria Bering, I'd like to welcome to the stage. Anne-Marie Ben-Katz, who's just been entertaining us so wonderfully. Alexander Christie. Welcome, Alex. Deandra Donaldson. Welcome, Deandra. And Tess Field. And Holly Gibson. Welcome, Holly. Felicity Grice. Catherine Gunthorpe. Welcome, Catherine. Aisha Hatcher. Welcome, Aisha. Sarah Hoban. Thank you, Sarah. Samantha Johnson. Welcome, Samantha. Georgia Kerbel. Zara Khan. Welcome, Zara. Jasmine Laikikas. Ella Mackenzie. Welcome, Ella. Bianca Mulhoon. Leanne Ping. Madeline Thornton. Serena Vanstone. Madison Watson. Courtney Withers. And Francesca Zoom. And just before Peter speaks this evening, Francesca and Courtney are just going to present Peter with a small gift from our Year 9 art students. If you have a look around the many tables, you'll see these beautiful lanterns. The girls have made all of these and the designs, and they've made one especially for Peter as well. So Peter, on behalf of our Year 9 art students.
So on behalf of all the 13-year girls and especially myself, I would just like to say a really big thank you to the girls who have travelled this road with me. It seems the journey's coming to an end. It's been a really fantastic 13 years, and my mum often says to me, make new friends but keep the old. Some are silver, some are gold. And I think the girls who have been with me for 13 years really are my gold, and I think we've been that to each other for a really long time. And so I want to say the biggest thank you to them for that. Also, we couldn't have done this alone, so I would like to say a really big thank you to the Women's Auxiliary, and especially Miss Victoria Lakis for organising our beautiful bracelets. And so as a small token of our appreciation, we'd just like to deliver her with some flowers. Thank you.
thanks very much. Thanks for being here this evening. I'd like to welcome you all for coming here this evening to these celebrations, and welcome staff, students, current and past, school council members, current and past. I've had the pleasure of having a conversation with past council members as well as present, and special guests. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Sherril Molloy, who's the Executive Director of the Anglican Schools Commission, Professor Susan Brandis, our Chairman of the school, St Hilda's Foundation Board members, heads of Anglican schools. I've had the pleasure of meeting up with a few of you tonight. There's a few here. Thank you very much for coming. The old girls and support group presidents, thanks very much for coming. I'd also like to acknowledge the friends of Peter and Anne that have travelled from interstate. I think they've all travelled from interstate, all your friends, correct? Phillip and Jane Anthony. Phillip was the Deputy Headmaster at Trinity, Melbourne, with Peter. Carol and James Studebaker. Carol was the Secretary at Trinity, as I understand it. Phillip and Trish Bell, friends of Peter and Anne, also ex-chairman of Abbotsleigh, Sydney. Eric and Cheryl Bernard, past head of Scots Bathurst, and assistant headmaster at Knox as well. And Milton and Susie Tewers. And Milton is the headmaster at Trinity Grammar School, Sydney. And finally, for my welcome, I'd like to welcome Catherine and Pete Jobson, who we know well, and Andrew and Kelsey, also, who we know well. That's Peter and Anne's daughter and son-in-law, and son and daughter-in-law. Tonight's always a special night, as we meet this time of year with particular note to our old girls and their wonderful dedication and commitment to the school. And I thank them for that. And it's my pleasure to work and have contact with those old girls through their committee, as well as the magnificent support groups for other parts of the school as well. We also use tonight to acknowledge those students and families in our community that have studied through their entire school life to Year 12. And Peter presented the bracelets earlier with us. But tonight, there's an added pleasure, and that is the opportunity to show our respect for someone that's led the school for over a decade now, to a place that we can all agree, I think, that sets us apart from our peers. And as a leader and an educator for young women. It's been my pleasure and continues to be my pleasure to work alongside Peter, and as always with great pleasure that I can inform you that the presentations tonight and the words of acknowledgement by some, and of course a time to celebrate tonight. So this normal evening for us has an added blessed opportunity to work and walk with Peter. So I'm not going to go at too much length. We're going to try and keep the speeches fairly succinct and not have you standing around in this heat, right? And so we can get back and enjoy the refreshments, and enjoy the banter, and enjoy the conversation with Peter and Anne. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Professor Susan Brandis, our chairman, to the stage. And before Susan actually commences, I'd ask Joanne Ramsey. The Ramsey family have a gift for the school this evening, and it's a gift to the school that's in recognition of Peter. So thank you, Joanne, and thank you, Susan.
Okay, so firstly, yes, I've been introduced. I'm Joanne Ramsey, and I was a student at St Hilda's along with my 5 sisters and my brother, a student at TSS. Over to my right here, I've got very strict instructions to let you know that this is a limited edition sporting memorabilia of Shirley Strickland, Betty Cuthbert and Marjorie Jackson. At the time that they were competing, they had won half of Australia's gold medals in Olympic history, and Betty Cuthbert actually took the gold medal for the first 400 metres ever in an Olympic Games. That has special significance to our family because my sister Sherril, who we lost in 2007, 5 months after she had been school sports captain here in 2006. That was Mr Crawley's first full year at the school, and Sherril was very, very fond of Mr Crawley. regularly known around the hood as the Craw Dog. So don't know if it still stands up. But we're like, who's this Craw Dog? The principal, what? And what we wanted to do tonight is donate this to the school in recognition for what Mr. Crawley's not only done for our family over the past 10 years and his compassion towards us and ensuring that we are still a part of the school's life, but also for what he has done for this school and its community and the students, you know, to what it is today. I walked in here tonight and I was mind blown. I've got 2 boys and I'm pretty jealous about that right now. But, you know, when I was hearing Mrs. James was principal, who's here tonight, and it's so lovely to see her, you know, years later I thought she was a genius with what she did, and then to see what Mr. Crawley's gone and done, it's just phenomenal. So any of the girls here tonight, you've no idea how lucky you are to have the education in this precinct that you've been given and the opportunities that stand before you in life. So to the school, we'd like to pass this to you in recognition for what Mr. Crawley has done for the school, the students and its community. Thank you.
So good evening, distinguished guests, fellow councillors, parents, friends, families, staff, and most importantly, young women of St Hilda's. Tonight we are here to honour Mr Crawley and celebrate with him an amazing career as an educationalist for over 40 years and for the last 11 years as principal of St Hilda's School. Peter is a true Renaissance guy. He's one who dabbles in IT. He's actually a bit of an IT geek, in my opinion. He loves history. He knows a good coffee. He speaks like a poet. And he enjoys towing a caravan. He had a great vision for the school and had the tenacity and patience to see this to fruition. The fact that we stand here tonight in this amazing environment of what was known as Reeves is testimony to his legacy. When I first met Peter in 2006, we talked about his love of gardening, and this love has been embedded in the grounds of the school, which if you have a look are actually truly remarkable. He also spoke of his passion for teaching and his appreciation of the humanities. Curiously, he mentioned technology and the opportunity to embed this in our classrooms. I remember with great clarity the night he was so excited in showing the council the first iPad that we'd somehow smuggled into Australia. Peter was absolutely mesmerised with the touchscreen. It's a bit like a Magnadoodle on steroids. And I remember thinking, this is a fad. The kids will either break them or lose them. And from that night, due to Peter's leadership, we've actually become one of the leading schools internationally in the use of classroom technology. Peter is a great communicator, and while he tells an entertaining story of an evening he spent once with, yes, Gough Whitlam, he's also able to engage in the most caring way with our preppies. Peter loves to write. He for many years had a professional journal that he published. His writing, it's expressive and poetic. I recall one time when as principal he had to write one of those what I'd call difficult letters that leaders have to do from time to time. His prose was impeccable, the tense and grammar perfect, a letter written with such insight and truly from the soul. However, I remember council saying, maybe Peter, you need to remove the poetry and the prose, use a few more dot points and get to the point, because after all, this was a disciplinary letter. I've been very fortunate to lead a council and have such a principal as Peter, that our meetings are always such a lot of fun. There's a mutual respect, and Peter's values have influenced the way we do business. Some of you may not know this, but Peter actually likes to read. So much so that when the girls were deciding on a suitable gift to mark his retirement, they come up with a very, very clever idea of every year group gifting him with a book for his retirement reading. This included titles such as The Very Hungry Caterpillar, The House at Pooh Corner, and The Alchemist. So for tonight, I did the obligatory Google on quotes on books for Peter and came up with a few that I think typify Mr. Peter Crawley as we know him. So Peter, as you retire, I'll leave you with some words of famous authors. Firstly, in the words of Oscar Wilde, who said, "If one cannot enjoy reading a book over and over again, then there's no use reading it at all." Yes, that's Mr. Crawley. Then there's Groucho Marx, who's cited as saying, "I find television very educating. Every time someone turns on the set, I go into another room and read a book." Yep, that's Mr. Crawley. Thomas Jefferson once said, "Honesty is the first chapter in the book of wisdom." Yep, definitely Mr. Crawley. He's led the school and lives his life by the best-selling book of all time, the Bible. Books are indeed near and dear to him. So to Anne and the Crawley family, thank you for lending us Peter. Like a good book, he's left an impression. We know that we've creased a few pages and there's some notations in the margins, but gee, what a great story. And we wish you lots of time to relax and enjoy. To Peter, words cannot express our gratitude. So I leave you with a final quote from American author and Nobel Prize winner Toni Morrison. "If there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it." And I suspect he will. So thank you, Peter and Anne, and our very best wishes as you enter the next chapter of your lives. Thank you very much.
School Council have organised a gift for Peter on his leaving and for Anne, and Susan will unveil it. The backstory for that, for those that couldn't be here, is that every year level, from pre-prep through, gave Peter a book as a gift at an assembly recently from the students, and all of those books are sitting in there, from the creepy crawly caterpillar right through, I think. And while Peter and Anne are on the stage, I'd ask Wendy Henning to come forward. Wendy, on behalf of the boarding fraternity, is going to present Peter with a gift as well. And I can tell you, for those of you that understand day schools versus boarding schools, boarding is a key part of our heart. So thanks, Wendy.
Mr. Crawley and Anne, on behalf of the Board of Parents Support Group, we would dearly like to say thank you for your contribution to boarding over your 11 years at St Hilda's. With that, Peter's taken and Anne have taken the time to make road trips out to our homes, to our girls as well. So he also had an understanding of where they came from when they came down here to the city. We would like to thank you for all of your contribution and your faith in boarding at St Hilda's that has made it such a wonderful place for our girls to be. And we wish you well on your future endeavours. Thank you.
And for the presentations as well, I'd like to introduce you to Georgia Frizelle on behalf of the Old Girls Association. Georgia has just taken on the presidency of the Old Girls Association, which is a fantastic time for the Old Girls. We have a range of ages here tonight in the Old Girls, and it's fantastic to see you all here. The Old Girls is a very significant part of the school and the alumni of the school, and it's fantastic to see the youth of the alumni coming forward and stepping forward and being a part of the school and being an early part of the school. So I thank the Old Girls Association in terms of those that have been a part of it and continue to be a part of it, and the youth as well. Welcome, President.
Mr. and Mrs. Crawley, just mirroring what Ms Henning just said, on behalf of the old girls, I can't say enough to say how thankful we are of what you've done for the last 10 years. Speaking personally, you made my journey through St Hilda's so much more than I thought it would be. And as much as I think Dr Wilson Reynolds will do a great job, I think you will be very dearly missed, and it will be very big shoes to fill. So thank you on behalf of all of the old girls.
Okay, we now move into part of the evening where we're going to have some words, some presentations in terms of people coming up and acknowledging and giving some stories about Peter in particular. And the first is Sherril Molloy. So Sherril Molloy, the Executive Director of the Anglican Schools Commission. Welcome.
Well, what an occasion. You know, when I first came onto the school council, I rang Peter up and said, if I come over to the school, will you show me what you want to do here? And so Peter took me over, just over the back here, to a pretty grubby and disused area of the school. And he said to me, what I can imagine here is a courtyard where the girls can gather. And old science, I can imagine this. And then we turned to Reeves and he said, and here, this is what I can imagine. And this is exactly what we've seen. Peter, you've done an amazing job. He also talked about the girls wanting to stretch themselves academically and really achieving. He talked about the girls looking outward, and I think we see that in the St Hilda's School. I think you're really blessed to be able to retire and see your vision. You can actually see what you imagined at the school. You're very lucky. But I think what you are leaving here is a deeper, more enduring quality. And that's the values that you live by, that you've led by, and that you've modelled for the girls. So thank you very much, Peter. Now, I have the privilege of working with the Archbishop, and he has asked me to give you this message. He sends his apologies for not being here tonight, but he said, however, I do wish to convey my deep appreciation for the leadership of Mr. Peter Crawley as head of St Hilda's. Peter's held in very high esteem by his colleagues in educational leadership, by the bishops of the diocese, and I have no doubt by parents and the students, as well as many others beside. I've been struck in particular by what has been achieved at St Hilda's in digital and online learning, in creative leadership, and in all sorts of initiatives that have ensued during Peter's tenure. Peter is a creative thinker and a communicator who inspires and energises. Coupled with his reflective and prayerful capacities and his deep personal faith, Peter's gifts have enabled him to make a significant contribution in the context of an Anglican school. It will have lasting impacts, and Peter leaves a rich legacy. On behalf of the wider church, please accept this brief expression of my sincere gratitude, Peter, for all you have ventured and achieved with your team at St Hilda's. Go on to the next stage of your journey with our profound thanks and God's blessing. It's the Most Reverend Dr. Phillip Aspinall. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Sherril. Next speaker is Philip Anthony, Peter's deputy at Trinity. Thank you, Philip.
I don't sit very well in this climate. I want to say a little about school principals, and in order to do that, I'm going to ask you to imagine that you are one. Now, Peter already is one, and he's not the only one in the room, which leaves him nothing to do for the next couple of minutes. I'm going to ask that he just sits there and with his colleagues and gives himself a dispensation from this activity. Now, so the rest of you have already started thinking what it's like to be one. And I'm wondering what was the first thing that came to mind. I do hope it wasn't the nice house and the salary. I do rather hope that it was something like this. You would be in the position where you can genuinely affect the lives of literally hundreds of young people in the year before they get to their tertiary education. Now, excuse me. I've been caught out here because I've prepared these things and then took a page out of Peter's book and decided I'd talk about something else. If your mind is running on about being a school principal, I want you to just think of one thing. I was 2IC for 3 different school principals, and I can tell you something you may not know, and that is if you want to daydream about being a principal, I could name a dozen occupations where you'd have a lot more fun doing the daydreams. The job is hard, and it's often even harrowing. First problem is that although there are rewards, they come slowly. And the second problem is that on a day-to-day basis, you are making decisions of such complexity that almost never will everybody be happy, and a lot of the time no one is happy. Then you've got the next consideration. You are somehow, as a principal, expected to be so multi-skilled that it's impossible. It's not so bad in the education area because the chances are that you will have a couple of postgraduate degrees in the area. But you could well do with another half dozen degrees and still not measure up to the job. Start with architecture, business management, finance, IT, the list goes on. Now the third thing about being a principal is that you are the tallest and most conspicuous poppy in the paddock. And half the people you speak to will be making an assessment of you. Even the kids at your school. And that may be your fault because you have undoubtedly trained them and encouraged them to use their critical faculties when any parent could have told you that they need no encouragement at all. And yet Peter thrived in the role. He not only thrived, he did more than enjoy it. He absolutely relished it. And he was a long while at the top. He was in his by the time he was in his late 30s, he'd already held a string of plum positions, and this is a time when most teachers are still hoping to crack it for head of department. Now, opinions may vary about Peter's, shall we say, his preeminent talent. I think it's his ability to solve problems through lateral thinking. The man is quite incapable of coming up with a pedestrian solution. Originality is the hallmark of everything that he does. There was only one occasion when I saw him borrow an idea, and even then he heavily modified it. And funnily enough, it was in the area that he's made his own, which is the interface between the students and technology. I'm referring to the fact that he wasn't actually the first principal in Australia to introduce universal laptops in a school. He was only the second. And as it happened, Bill Gates sent one of his inner circle out here to see what Peter was up to. So the chances are that he wasn't only second in Australia, he was second in the world. Some of Peter's best lateral thinking, when I worked with him, was in the area of the appointments he made, often sort of uncanny. He appointed a guy as head of Year 12 over 20 years ago, and the man's only just retired. And at the time, the staff wondered what he was on about. Because to be honest, the guy wasn't endearing. And the opinion of the staff was that although the kids would follow his directives, they would resent having to do so. And there'd be inevitable kerfuffles along the road. Peter, funnily enough, believed that the guy would almost instantly elicit not only cooperation from the Year 12s, but actually goodwill. And this proved to be the case. All the time the guy was in charge of the Year 12s, the school went swimmingly, because if the Year 12s are on side, so are the 11s, 10s, all the way down the road. Now, my vote for the second of Peter's outstanding characteristics is what I call his blithe self-confidence. It matches in well with his ability to innovate, because the what if it fails scenario just never enters his head. He often takes a long while to clarify his thoughts, but once he's done that, he's off. Now, you couldn't call it cockiness, because that would imply that his own belief in the efficacy of his ideas is not well founded. Now, very occasionally things will go awry, and when that happens, you see the last and probably the most endearing of his characteristics. He has a wonderfully sort of self-deprecatory sense of humour. Now, I owe Peter a great deal. He gave me trust, encouragement, friendship, and a great deal of room in which to move. And there is one area in which he's particularly fortunate. There's a very long list of things that he doesn't have to worry about, because he knows that the incredibly efficient Anne will take care of them. Now, I don't know whether the Crawley marriage came about because Anne proposed to Peter, or the other way around, but he or she got it right. So, thank you.
Thanks, Phillip. And I'm pretty sure I saw Helen Mackay, Peter's personal assistant, really nodding quite rigorously when you said he doesn't keep to the script. But so I would also like to welcome Phillip Bell now. Thanks, Phillip. Phillip's a good friend of Peter and Anne. And thanks for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm the token friend for the night. I think Peter and Anne have more than one friend, and I think most of them are here tonight as well, so it is a great pleasure to be here. I first met Peter in 1999 when Peter became head of Knox. Our son was at Knox, and we got to know him well there. And I also had the privilege of chairing the council of Abbotsleigh, which is a block and a half from Knox. And so we had a lot in common, and we talked about educational matters, problems in schools, how to fix them, how to fix the world in general, you know, all those sorts of things that when two middle-aged men get together, talk about. Back in those days, we both had brown hair. Peter's now gone white. I'm sort of this dirty grey, so Peter's job obviously is a lot more stressful than mine was. You were told that Pete had a great interest in technology, and mentioned that Microsoft spent some time in Australia with Peter, and what a great credit to him that was. Pity he didn't buy shares back then. And he still has this great passion for IT. We were recently travelling in Europe with the Crawleys, and every town we came to, the Crawleys knew where the best coffee was. They looked it up, they knew which coffee shop, and they knew how to get there. We went down some back alleys, back laneways, and we saw a lot more of Europe than we intended to, trying to find these elusive coffee shops. But Peter, to me, is a great friend, and I know our friendship will continue for a long time to come. But with my experience in education, and I've been in governance with independent schools for nearly 30 years, there's three things that have stood out in Peter's way of being that I think are significant and are not shared by most heads. I call it Peter the builder, Peter the planter, and Peter the educational leader. Comments have been made about Peter's building, and Sherril mentioned his vision for the place and the way this building's taken shape. I remember being here with the old building, came back when it was in construction and came back again when it was completed. Outstanding vision to imagine this. Back at Knox, Peter developed the master plan for the school back in 1999-2000, and they're still basically following that master plan. They haven't come up with a better solution to develop in their physical facilities. Peter the planter. Peter loves planting trees, loves planting shrubs, loves planting bushes. And what that does in a school is it adds a softness to it. It adds a relaxing environment to the school. So not only you have the built environment, you have that environment around the buildings, around the learning areas. And a comment was made earlier about how wonderful it is to come into this space now and having the greenery around you and having these marvellous buildings. And Peter, the educational leader. I know many heads and have interviewed many heads over the years, and I would regard Peter as one of the leading educationalists in this country today. He has a vision for education, he has an understanding of education, and he has a passion for education. Passion for the girls or the boys in previous roles, but passion for the staff as well. How can, through the education environment, how can they produce the best outcomes for the girls? How can they prepare them for the next stage in life? For the staff, how can they develop themselves? How can they rise to the occasion, rise to the challenge of teaching? Peter's been leading them in doing that, and I know that the staff members who are here today know that passion he has and have been the recipients of that energy. But it's time for Peter to leave. It's time to make way for the next person. I know Peter has thought long and hard about this decision. It's not just a decision for him personally, it's also a decision what's the best time for the school. Schools, as you know, go in cycles, so it really need to pick the right time in the cycle for a head to leave. And I think Peter has made a very wise decision to leave at this time. One of the concerns for a departing head is who's going to come next? Who's going to be my successor? Are they going to continue with the traditions that I have established? Are they going to continue with the strategic plans that I've set up? Can I acknowledge the School Council and the Anglican Schools Commission in appointing Julie Wilson-Reynolds as the next head of this wonderful school. I know Julie, she is an outstanding educator, and Peter, I'm sure, is delighted that Julie is coming to continue the work and broaden the work and grow the work that's already been established. So, well done, School Council and Schools Commission. Outstanding appointment, I'm delighted. So what will the Crawley years mean to St Hilda's? You've had growth physically in buildings, you've had growth numerically, you've had growth academically. And I think when the history of the school is written again, these are the years that are going to stand out as being the reinvention of St Hilda's under strategic leadership and powerful leadership and compassionate leadership. So with St Hilda's loss at Sydney's gain, we're looking forward to the Crawleys coming back to Sydney and spending more time with them. But I know that Peter has cherished the time he's spent here, and I'm sure all of you who have spent time with Peter and Anne and have got to know them will cherish that time as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Phillip. Our last speaker for the evening is Head of All Saints, Patrick Wallas. Patrick is a colleague, but also a very good friend of Peter's. So I'm looking forward to Patrick coming up and telling us some of those stories that he will certainly have in his time.
Well, good evening. I've no idea why I have the singular honour to be invited to speak about your wonderful retiring principal. It's an honour I'm not sure I deserve, and one which represents one of those delightful and unexpected surprises upon which I have absolutely come to depend in life. Of course, Peter and I have certain things in common. Maybe this is why I received the call. We're both principals of Anglican schools. We're both, by our pupils' standards, at least existing in that twilight zone between old and ancient. We both love working with children. We both have families that mean the world to us. We both have a sustaining faith in a God who loves us recklessly and unconditionally. And we both delight in the path that he has chosen for us. We both also care deeply about our schools and the people within them. So all these points of coalescence perhaps qualify me for a Guernsey at this important gathering this evening. Yet perhaps rather selfishly, I hope I'm here for a different reason. I hope that I'm here because over the past 10, 11 years in my various dealings with your wonderful principal, we have somehow managed, beneath the formality and the handshaking, beneath the sporadic nature of our encounters, outside the limitations of principal speak, to have quietly, rather magically become friends. And perhaps I should declare my hand at this point. I think the world of your principal. I've met many principals in my time. I've got to be a bit careful because some of them are here tonight. But there is no one who I respect more than your principal, Mr. Peter Crawley. He sets a benchmark for leadership to which I humbly aspire. And it would be unjust to talk about Peter and his outstanding leadership without mentioning his beautiful wife, Anne, who has stood by him through thick and thin, who he adores. And Peter would be the first to affirm that he simply could not have achieved all the things he has done in life without Anne by his side. So being, yes, so being asked to speak tonight, of course, led me to consider why I think the world of Peter, and I hope that some of the reasons I have lead you to think the world of him too. As we've heard tonight, I think Peter is one of the few genuine visionaries I have met. And I expect that St Hilda's might seem rather normal to some of you, but believe me, it's unique. And it's unique for all the right reasons. It's unique because it values service over status. It values people over PR. It's unique because in a world of easy options, it has a leadership team that is prepared again and again and again to stand up for what it believes is right. St Hilda's uniqueness as a school is in no means accidental, and it is in part, I believe, a result of the humble, committed, resolute and selfless leadership from the man we honour tonight. Every so often, the heads of Anglican schools, and there are quite a few of us, in Queensland, we meet to discuss the various issues affecting our schools, and you might not be aware of this, but Peter is actually a lion on such occasions. He doesn't roar very often because he doesn't need to. His quiet authority, established over nearly 40 years in education, is a refuge to which we so often return when confusion reigns, as it often does. Peter is universally respected and admired by his colleagues, both within the Anglican system and beyond. And I think that's something you should be very proud of, because he always attends these meetings as your representative. I personally have learned a great deal from Peter. I've learned that leadership without genuine humility is dysfunctional and misguided. I've learned that integrity is eternal and charisma is fleeting. I've learned that true leadership is about consistency and commitment and reliability, and perhaps most of all, generosity of spirit. And Peter is one of those people who has reinforced for me that all of us are essentially heliotropic. You've got to forgive me, but as an English teacher, I get a really perverse buzz out of using scientific terms. As human beings, we naturally grow towards the light. And of course, it's easier for people like Peter and me to believe this because we have spent our working lives alongside children. And at times when the veil of darkness so often seems to fall across our world, we look to the children for that energy they exude, to find comfort from them. And you know what? We find it time and time again. They give us hope, their zest for life, their thirst for adventure, their laughter, perhaps especially their laughter, remind us that optimism should always be our default position. It is for Peter, it is for me, and I'm just so grateful for that. Thank God for children. There's a passage, I'm getting towards the end, but there's a passage in E.M. Forster's beautiful little book, What I Believe. If you haven't read it, it's worth a read. And it always reminds me of Peter. It's one of those things we were hearing earlier, a book that I read over and over again. But this particular passage, I can't read it without thinking of Peter, and it goes like this. The people I most admire are those who are sensitive and want to create something or discover something, and do not see life in terms of power. They produce literature and art, or they do disinterested scientific research, or they may be what is called ordinary people who are creative in their private lives, bring up their children decently, or help their neighbours. I believe in the aristocracy of the sensitive, the considerate, and the plucky. Its members are to be found in all nations and all classes, and all through the ages there is a secret understanding between them when they meet. They represent the true human condition. They are sensitive to others as well as for themselves. They are considerate without being fussy. Their pluck is not swankiness, but the power to endure. And they can take a joke. I'm bold enough to believe that I have shared that secret understanding to which Forster refers with Peter. We're not always good at dealing with farewells. I think sometimes we find it hard to put into words connections that have been meaningful to us in sometimes indefinable ways. So my final word to all of you, staff, pupils, parents, is please do not let this fine, passionate, gentle man leave without saying to him what you need to say. It might be a letter or an email, it might be a snatched conversation, but he has loved all of you and has been happy to serve you, and he will, I promise, be glad to receive your blessings. So ladies and gentlemen, young women of St Hilda's, if there are still any left, and older women of St Hilda's, it has been our privilege to share our journey for a short while with a remarkable man. Let us rejoice and be glad in it, and may God bless you both, Peter and Anne, now and always.
Thanks, Patrick. And Peter.
Can I say that after people say all those things about you, it's extraordinarily hard to think of what you might say in response. There is a tendency of those extraordinary things to empty the mind. So I start therefore with a few thank yous. Obviously, as Phillip said, the extraordinary thank you to my wife. It's, in fact, we had a little interchange before we came here. She asked me about the running sheet of the evening, and I said, "Oh no, I didn't read that." And she said, well, she looked at me and I said, well, other people will have read it. I don't need to. And that does summarise an awful lot. We have a saying that I got from my grandmother, actually, that you don't have a dog and bark too. And while that's a little crass and a little bit blunt, it has summarised it. And I certainly don't mean that about my wife. But I certainly don't multitask all of those things that I'm not very good at. And when I left Trinity, Phillip actually said that if I had a watch it wouldn't matter because I wouldn't use it. And there was some truth in that too, because the conversation I was having at the time was way more interesting than perhaps the one I wasn't having, and I was looking forward to. But all of those things are part of the natural who you are. But thank you to all of those people who've spoken tonight. As I think about taking over a school like this, you know, one of the things that has to be said is you sit on the shoulders of a lot of other people. When I came here, I sat and looked at the history of the school, and I sat on the shoulders of a lot of good educators, and there's no getting away from it. There are a lot of good people who preceded me into this school, and in their own times, in their own ways, they had their issues and they achieved their goals. And Josie's sitting down there, and Josie is one of the great heads of this school and needs to be acknowledged as such. And there are others, But it's also, it's silly not to recognise in the community the significance of a school council, because I don't know whether you know, but you can do nothing as a head of a school without the support of your school council. And tonight there are people who are here at my appointment. Ian Hollandale is here, who was my second chair. Tony Davies is here, who was on the appointing group. Susan was on the appointing group. Maybe I've forgotten someone else. Sherril was not on the appointing group, but she came later as my chair. And we checked her out really accurately too before we let her on the council. I can remember Susan was absolutely blunt about saying to the bishop who was on the council at the time, she got a good sense of humour. And then he said she did, but we said, well, come on, give us some examples of the things she laughs at. And so we did a pretty thorough review. But those councillors that we have worked with in this school have been very significantly responsible for allowing the vision of this school to become what it is. It would not have happened without those people who sit behind the scenes and contemplate what they want. And when they sit and they sat and they talked and said, we do want this school to be one of the world's leading schools, there was no shyness about saying they wanted it to be a leading school. They went with the dream. And yes, I guess at times it was a little poetic, and I do remember that moment, Susan, over that tough letter I had to write. Crackingly good letter. Beautifully written, and an epitome of fairness too. And I got told, go on, toughen it up. So I did. I gave it everything. And then I got told, do you mind if we take it and just deal with it? Okay, yeah. I can take a back seat. So I did. And sure enough, when I saw the finished product, boy, did I look strong. So it absolutely made me, I walked around with a real spring in the step for a few days. You know, I felt great. But look, you go on a journey with people is really what I'm trying to say. You really do that journey with a whole lot of people. But as I look at my career, and it's been a lovely career, lots of good highs and lows, and What do I like about education that really summed up by my own daughter when she came into the profession? She wanted to do something moral. And I love that statement. I love it for her and I loved it for me. So what do I love about this job? You get to do some great fun things. You do get to build a lot, you do get to dream a lot, and people tell you can't do a whole lot of things, and frankly you can. And really it's just about almost selling the narrative and finding the way of putting it into words. And if you're putting good things into words with good values, you can actually do a phenomenal amount. Can I say a special thank you to the parents of this school, because I think you have come on the journey, and I'd have to finally say to the girls of this school, and there's not quite enough of them here tonight, and I don't like functions without the girls being here. Thank you to those of you who have stayed. But I will say, about a week ago, they gifted me one of the best memories of my life, which was the farewell assembly the girls arranged. And that was really special. I had nothing to do with it. I was really the victim. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to take place. But they were extraordinary in the way they crafted the farewell to me. And what they did was actually the largest book down there, the very big brown one on the second shelf on the right-hand side, is in fact about 70 pages of what they have said to me. And it's pretty hard to read without getting a bit emotional. And in the end, it gets down to saying, what do you want out of a school? Now, we all want good maths classes, we all want good science classes and English classes, we all want the educational bit to be right, but we also want the memories to be right and the journey to be right. Therefore, the values have to be right and the relationships have to be right. It's by and large the incidental things that you say to the girls that usually get remembered. It's the quirky stuff, it's not really the formal stuff. It's the stuff that comes from your personality that really gets remembered, I think. But that's what I remember about them. I don't actually remember whether they got 78 or 80 in a maths test. I actually remember there's something about their personality. And I think as a teacher, the great gift you have is to see that thing that becomes special in them. And I look down and I see, a couple of singers down in the second row there. And I think, one growls with goes a couple of octaves as she goes from one bit to the other, and she'll be a great jazz singer, it'll be great. And the other one gets this angelic look and she goes into a trance, and it's like sensational. You remember that quirky stuff that they do, and she's singing covers at the moment, but she'll get over that and do her own stuff. But you do remember that quirkiness that they have, and that's the brilliance of the individuality. In the end, can I just say thank you to the whole group of people. You have honoured me by turning up here tonight, the speakers who have come, my friends who have come, my family who has come. You get to the end of the career, and one of the things you do with your family is you look back and you think, did I spend too long on the career? You do worry about that. You worry about, did you spend too long on the career? Were you a bit self-centred? You do ponder those things. Everyone, I think, needs to remember Kurt Vonnegut's MIT speech, commencement speech. Look it up on the internet. Kurt Vonnegut, the writer, MIT 1999, and he spent a beautiful, absolutely exquisite commencement speech, in other words, graduation speech to MIT. And it's a bit of fun, but he talks about family and friends, and those things, because those things become meaningful to you as you get older. Don't give up friends, don't give up family, don't give up those things that become meaningful to the essence of who you are. Stay with it, stick with it, and the thing I've enjoyed most about this career is the ability to put into practice what I think really are the beauty of life. Now, yes, I know I get a little bit teased about talking too long, and the girls go on and on about the speeches are a bit long, and okay. But you only get a couple of chances in life to have an impact on people, and basically don't give up any of them. And for the girls, do something that's going to keep you learning, do something that's going to keep you interested, do something that's going to allow you to change, do something that will give you a relationship. And don't talk about independence, for heaven's sakes. It drives me nuts talking about you growing to independence. Grow to interdependence. To grow with somebody, to grow with a relationship, to grow with the humanity around you. Way more powerful. And never give up the opportunity to connect with others. It's way better than independence. And I know you're getting to 18 and you think that's the dream, but the dream is actually connection with people. Thank you to everyone. I've really appreciated it. Okay, thank you everybody.
First and foremost, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Anne. And thank you for being here, and thank you for leading the school in the way you have for the last decade or more. Thank you to the speakers, and thank you once again to all the groups, parents, students, everyone that turned up this evening. To the old girls, have a wonderful day tomorrow. Enjoy your day, enjoy your new president, and have a wonderful time for the future of the youth coming into that group. Thank you, relax, enjoy, have a conversation with Peter and Anne, and we'll see you again at the next function. Thank you.
I lost myself on a cool damn night. Gave myself in that misty light. Was hypnotized by strange delight. Under a light that tree. I made wine from the light that tree. Put my heart in its recipe. Makes me see what I want to see. And be who I wanna be. I think more than I wanna think. Do things I never should do. I drink much more than I wanna drink. 'Cause it brings me back to you. See